Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné, our top stories. A year ago, a peace deal between the Ethiopian government and the TPLF put an end to a conflict which killed hundreds of thousands. Today, people are still struggling with the aftermath of the war. Environmental activists in Uganda are opposed to a French mega oil project, which they say would be an ecological and human disaster. But their voices are being silenced, according to Human Rights Watch. After the Heroes Welcome, the Homecoming Tour for the Springboks, the Rugby World Champions are being hailed as a symbol of unity by President Cyril Ramaphosa. It has been exactly 1 year since the Pretoria Peace Accords were signed, putting an end to 2 years of civil war in Tigray. A year on, more than 1 million displaced people have still not been able to return home, and half the population are reported going hungry. Clothilde Hazard is in Addis Ababa.
Thanks to relative peace, basic services are gradually returning to Tigray. Electricity, internet and telephone communications have returned. The population can also move quite freely. Health facilities are slowly resuming services and some children are returning to school. But many schools are occupied by displaced people who are still unable to return home and are living in camps. This vulnerable population is in addition to ex-combatants and victims of sexual violence affected by the trauma of the conflict, who still need humanitarian support. But above all, violences persist in the region.
We also hear serious reports of forced displacement, harassment, intimidation, and killings of ethnic Tigrayans in areas that are controlled by Eritrean Defense Forces and the Amhara forces. Unfortunately, we have not been able to go to these locations to verify the reports, but some of the reports we receive are credible.
The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission is investigating these allegations, a difficult task as many areas are too dangerous or restricted by authorities, like southern Tigray and western Tigray, sensitive areas on the border with the Amhara region, affected by another ongoing conflict.
The conflict between Ethiopia and Tigray regional forces had started in November 2020. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had accused them of an attack on its northern command based in a region. After he launched a military offensive, the war escalated and thousands of civilians were killed. Caroline Lamboli tells the story.
It was hailed as the beginning of a new dawn for Ethiopia. November 2nd, 2022. The day the Tigrayan rebel forces and the Ethiopian army agreed to end a brutal 2-year civil war.
The two parties in the Ethiopian conflict have formally agreed to the cessation of hostilities.
By January this year, Tigrayan rebels were reported to have started handing over their weapons, and Eritrean soldiers who fought alongside the government forces appeared to leave towns in the region of Tigray. It was one of the bloodiest wars in recent history, and it took place far from the public gaze due to a near-total communications blackout on the region, which lies around 900 kilometers north of the capital and borders Eritrea. In the first year of the conflict, the UN chief condemned a de facto humanitarian blockade. He said around 400,000 people were living in famine-like conditions. According to the African Union, around 600,000 people were killed. A year after the war ended, locals say that the restoration of services in Mekele, the capital of Tigray, has been slow. Many are still out of work. Much of the population was displaced. In May, thousands of people demonstrated in Mekele, demanding to be able to go back to their homes. Some also called for the withdrawal of outside forces, which continue to occupy the area. Many still require humanitarian aid. At least 1,400 people in Tigray are said to have starved to death in recent months. In the spring, the US and the UN suspended food aid over concerns that it was being stolen.
And now to Uganda, where opponents to a French mega oil project are being harassed, according to an NGO. Environmental groups warn that Total Energy's plan to build a giant oil pipeline could lead to an ecological and human disaster. But Human Rights Watch says authorities in Kampala are trying to silence their voices. Our correspondent in the region, Clément Di Roma, has more.
Total Energy's mega project in collaboration with Uganda, Tanzania and a Chinese company has been criticized for years by local NGOs. Environmental activists say oil drilling in a natural park is dangerous for the environment and the population. A recent Human Rights Watch report claims activists are often arbitrarily arrested, harassed and threatened by Ugandan authorities. The NGO claims 31 victims were interviewed for this report. In response, Total, which hopes to produce its first barrels by 2025, declared that it does not condone those attacks. The Ugandan government has not yet responded. According to several NGOs, over 100,000 people have been displaced because of the construction of the heated pipeline that is set to cross the region over 1,400 kilometers, including protected areas. These organizations have filed various lawsuits and civil actions against Total in France to obtain reparations, but with little success so far.
10 years ago, journalists Ghislaine Dupont and Claude Verlon were brutally murdered in the Malian town of Kidal. Our partner radio station RFI has today awarded the scholarship bearing their names to Joseph Kahongo, a journalist from the DRC working for Malaika Station, and to Ange Joël Agbla, a technician at Radio Univers in Benin. At the award ceremony, they paid tribute to the two journalists who died and also to all their colleagues around the world who suffered the same fate.
Étant bénéficiaire de cette bourse,
I am committed with this scholarship to honor their legacy by pursuing independent journalism and true journalism.
journalisme honnête.
Le devoir d'informer, malheureusement, dans le
The duty to inform nowadays is threatened, and it's considered as a crime by some people. But we will continue their legacy. This ceremony is proof that the torch can be passed.
Le flambeau peut être passé.
Tunisia's parliament is now debating a bill that would criminalize any normalization of ties with Israel. The text would proscribe any interaction between Tunisians and Israelis, including events, exhibitions, and competitions in any context. Over the past month, thousands of Tunisians have hit the streets in support of Palestinians in Gaza under siege since the October 7 Hamas attack. And we're still following King Charles and Queen Camilla in Kenya. It's the King's first state visit to an African nation and to a Commonwealth member since he has ended the throne last year. For the UK, Kenya is a strategic partner, and after Brexit, the two countries signed an economic pact to boost trade and investment. Our correspondent in Nairobi, Olivia Bizot, explains.
In this post-Brexit world, the UK is constantly on the lookout for strong trading partners. And the Commonwealth could be the perfect solution, which would enable the UK to transform its Global Britain slogan into reality. Kenya's President William Ruto also has a big incentive to make this trip a success. He's currently facing a huge debt crisis and could definitely do with the British financial investment. Trade between Kenya and the UK is strong. It currently stands at 1.6 billion euros.
We have obviously boosting our existing trade already. Kenya, for example, exports lots of tea, fruit and vegetables, flowers to the UK. So we want to help increase that through further investments into those kind of sectors. So that's one thing. We also have in our trade agreement a provision for negotiation on services in the future. So particularly around tech, digital services, financial services, that's a very forward-looking area that we're looking at, and also around infrastructure.
Right after its independence, the UK was Kenya's main trading partner. Today, Kenya is the UK's 77th trading partner, but it's its main trading partner in Africa. And the UK sees Kenya as an essential anchor in an unstable region, as well as a gateway into the rest of the continent. But now the UK is facing increasing competitions from countries like China and Russia, who've invested heavily in Kenya in recent years, especially in the port city of Mombasa, where King Charles is ending his trip.
The World Cup winning Springboks are now on a 4-day homecoming tour in South Africa. The rugby champions were greeted by tens of thousands of fans after they brought home the trophy for a record fourth title. South Africa won against their greatest rivals, New Zealand, last Saturday in Paris. And President Cyril Ramaphosa said the team was a symbol of unity. Vidika Bahel.
Here in Pretoria, it's a roaring hero's welcome for South Africa's rugby team after bringing home their fourth title at the Rugby World Cup. Waiting to greet them was also the country's president, who applauded the Springboks for uniting the country despite its divisive past.
You are a testament of the power of a dream. You come from different parts of our country. You are as diverse as the people of South Africa, and we are proud that we are represented by such a diverse team where every one of us as South Africans can see themselves represented in the team.
The victory tour continued to Soweto, where fans greeted the team in a sea of gold and green. The Johannesburg township is symbolic for various reasons. It's not just the former home of Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, but also where the Springboks were once hated and perceived as a symbol of the white Afrikaner during apartheid.
I would like to say thank you to the Springboks. They have made us proud as a country. We're very happy to welcome them home.
They have made us proud. You know, winning the World Cup for the fourth time, it's a huge achievement. So we were here to celebrate. This is a history. It's history.
For 90 years, the Springboks selected white players, which only changed in 1994 after Nelson Mandela famously rallied behind the team. The homecoming tour will continue across South Africa until Sunday.
And it is with this sweet taste of victory that we end this edition. Thank you for watching Eye on Africa. Stay tuned for more news.